Hello and welcome to another episode of You First. That's right. It's all things you, and you. It's all things self-care, mental well-being, personal development, and empowerment. I am your host, Shawanna Kennedy. I am super excited about this show. I say it often because I really do mean it. All too often, we don't celebrate enough. We don't know and prioritize the gift that we are. One of the things I had to learn it the hard way, is to make me a priority in my life. So much so that it's been about 5 years ago now that I wound up in the hospital thinking that I had a Charlie horse. It wound up being a blood clot. It was then that I was then face up. It didn't matter about my husband, my children, none of them. And I love my mom, but y'all know what? I love me. I had to realize what God had already said to me, is that I was a gift and I had to make myself a priority. Let me make sure people understand, it's never above your creator. I'll say it again. It's never above your creator, but he has made us a gift. All too often, we forget to put ourselves first. That is when I love to have amazing people like my guest today. My guest today, this woman has done some amazing things for over almost 20 years, 15 years. She has lost over 70 pounds. Woo! Yes, that is a big feat. That is a small child. Amen. Right? Or somebody's teenager. She is also a licensed therapist. Now it is her business. She has done so much for herself that God even gave her the unction. And we're going to get into the juiciness of her story and what made her turn it into a business. So I'm excited because she's a mom, she's a wife, all of the things, and she has been able to turn that physical, that mental, understanding what that look and feel like to help not only herself, but to help others. I want you to help me welcome to the platform nobody other than the lady herself, Miss Barbara Parker.
Hi, glad to have you here.
Welcome. I'm excited that you have paused for the cause, because as you guys, we could see that she's already at work and that we are getting down to the nitty gritty. Thank you so much for being here, Barbara. Thank you. I want to get right into it because I know you got a lot of stuff to tell us. When we think about self-care and mental well-being, what happened? What was that one thing that you said? I said you have a husband, you have children, right? You have family. When was it where you said this is where the rubber meets the road and you had to draw a line in the sand? What happened?
For me, I had to realize I was constantly taking care of everybody. I think for me, the pivotal change was my divorce. So going through that process of realizing I was putting more into him and then into myself, into my kids. I was always taking care of him, what he needed, and that was always changing. So never feeling like I really was succeeding in that task. And once I terminated that relationship, I started to have more time to focus on my needs, because there was this chasm of not having to fulfill and take care of somebody else. It was now time to take care of me. So that's kind of how that was born.
Okay, see, you mentioned something that is very important, because I know we have viewers from all walks of life, and you mentioned it was due to your divorce. A divorce. I mean, we're excited about her now husband. So I know you heard me say that she is a wife. That's right. God allowed her to find love again, and somebody decided to claim her and find his good thing, right? But when we think about divorce, so if you could just even talk to divorcees for a minute, or somebody that could be really saying, I already know that. I know the Barbara story. I know what it looks like to be the mom. I know what it feels like to just feel like I'm pouring everything, not only to my children, because don't get me wrong, I'm a mother of 3, and I know we have responsibility. But then when you have another adult who is supposed to be your partner, right? Our husbands are supposed to be, a house band. That's the husband. And when you're not feeling like that, and then you're being pulled on, what did that look like? And how can you help someone that may be actually in it as we speak?
So what I've told my clients that have come to me for counseling and want to preserve their relationship, I've told them to focus on their needs. A lot of times you're frustrated because you're taking care of this person, taking care of your mom, your kids, your spouse, and you're not really taking care of yourself, and you just feel depleted. You feel like you don't have the things you need or nobody's looking out for you. It's time for you to start looking out for you. So what you need to do is cut out like maybe 2 hours, beginner style, and say, hey, these 2 hours are mine every week, whether that's taking a walk, just sitting in silence, watching your favorite show, or just nobody can talk to you or do anything and pull on you. It's just time to take care of yourself. For me, I tend to go to the beach and just have quiet time, listen to the waves, feel the sun. Whatever it works for you is what's going to be the thing that's going to be healing to your soul and help you figure out how to find your true north.
Yeah, no, that's good. And you said with him and having that and knowing that, those are some great tips that you can give, and they actually can help anyone, whether you have a partner, you married or not. Sometimes it's even with family. We have to be okay to pull away and to say that it's okay to set those boundaries. And I know that's going to be a large part of this conversation, because you talk a lot about the boundaries and what that looked like and the things that we have to even unlearn. Let's talk about that. What was one of the biggest things when we think about your self-care and what you get to operate in right now, being even a business owner, and that is your business, to talk about boundaries? What was one of the biggest things that you had to unlearn?
Taking care of everybody and everything. So
no, we want to look. We talking to the people. We talking to the girlfriend. If I was your good girlfriend right now, and you like, Shawanna, girl, you need to stop A, B, and C. Now we know, because taking care of them could just make sure we're going to give you your food and I'm doing what I do. Talk to your girlfriend right now. What would you say to your girlfriend?
I would say no. Tell whoever is asking you for whatever it is, no. No is a whole sentence, paragraph, book. That's it. That's all. You don't have to explain yourself. Just no is no. And then abide by that, because your family, friend, spouse is not going to want to hear no. So they're going to come back and ask you, or ask you in a different way. But if you can say no and you don't have to explain, because they're going to try and talk you out of why you said no. So give no explanation. No is no. It's a full sentence, full stop. That's it. That's all.
No, I love it. I've said it before too. Look, a PSA. For some people, you have to put out a public service announcement. And that is, I say, you don't have to explain. You said it. You don't have to explain. And sometimes we're so busy trying to make other people feel comfortable with decisions that are best for us, that we then again lose ourselves in trying to make other people feel comfortable. And you're correct. No is no, right? It's not next opportunity. Now is the time for you to own who you are. Now is your time to own who you are and making yourself a priority. And like I said, we know that people have a number of things that they're responsible for. But if you don't, we already know it. Hey, if you don't take care of yourself, that is not a freaking cliche. If you don't take care of yourself, nobody else will do it. And we'll be saying, okay, I'll see you in on the other side, right? When we think about the boundaries, I know it's not always easy. So it's not always easy. It's not always easy to say no, because then you find yourself, that's what I'm saying, you find yourself right back where you didn't want to be. So what is some of the things that, if you said no and then you feel yourself, how do you suggest that we then walk into that no? Because for some people, it's so hard because there are relationships. I know relationships right now where individuals, because of what they've set up and it's been so in place, right? That codependency, that's the word. That codependency on different people, whether it's family members, whether it's your partner. How do you help people to break that codependency?
So with the codependency, I help people remember you're a limited resource. Keep taking care of everything and everybody. You literally deplete yourself. You're supposed to give out of your abundance, your overflow. But if you never pour into you, and nobody around you is pouring into you, and everybody's a leech, then you deplete it. You start flipping out, getting mad at everybody, You're depressed, crying, anxious, because what if you say no? What are the negative consequences of saying no? So then you don't say no at all, or you say no and then you give in. This happens a lot of times when people are in relationships and they're like, well, I want to be in a committed relationship. But initially y'all were just having fun. Now you're stuck in this position where you're trying to pivot the relationship and he may not want to. So then you have to decide, are you willing to walk away? And of course, he gonna do everything he can to get you to not walk away. I've had, when me and my ex-husband was dating, I kept trying to get rid of him. He would come to my house and he would say, oh, I gotta pee, because I wouldn't let him in the door. And so I let him in. He'd plop his little stuff on that couch and then not move. And I'm sitting there like, fine. And then I sit on the couch. And now somehow this feeds back into being in a relationship that I was not wanting to be into, which ultimately led me to get married. I don't regret my 2 kids, however, or the lessons I learned, but just having that boundary, a boundary without enforcement, is just a suggestion.
Say that again for the people in the back.
A boundary without enforcement is a suggestion. So to make it a true boundary, you have to keep enforcing it. You don't let your neighbors come onto your yard. Why do you let them keep encroaching on your wants, desires, and things that make you feel uncomfortable? Go ahead and with that same, put that sign up. Nope, not doing it. Nope, that's not it. Just cut it off at the pass and just be consistent in your message. They have any questions or they try and get aggressive about it, cut off communication until they can fulfill what makes you feel comfortable. You have to keep saying the same thing until your boundaries are honored or until they no longer have the right to your company.
I love that. I love that. Don't y'all love that? Woo! That is good. That is real good because it is needed, and it's those constant reminders. We whether bad or good, we set certain things in motion. We set certain things in place, and so the same way we practice getting muscles, because I know I've seen you. If y'all already know and check her out, Barbara be in the gym lifting a little bit. Barbara be lifting a little bit. She be lifting a lot, matter of fact, and that comes with practice. That comes with discipline, and the same thing is required in order for us to self first, in order for us to put ourselves first, put you first. You have to make that a practice. It's not something that can happen overnight, especially if that's not something that we're used to. I know it's different when we think about Gen Z, all of the different age range and generational things, right? Because we know, depending on how old you are, even viewing, we've been taught to be humble and take care of others. I'm big on even where the scripture says, take care of your neighbor as yourself. The whole thing is we haven't been good neighbors to ourselves. So that's why we don't like our neighbor, because we don't even know how to treat ourselves, right? You talk about the grass, forget the grass, because you had the right neighbor. You can be more inclined to, help do a little few things outside because that's your neighbor and you being a good neighbor. But have you started with you? What does that look like for you when you think about the full glass mirror and turning the mirror on yourself? If you had to pick one thing that you said, Shawanna, I was neglecting this. This is the one thing that stands out of all of the stuff that I was not doing, and I knew that I was headed to my detriment had I not made a change. What was that one thing?
Not taking care of my health. That's the thing that made a huge difference because, when my aunt died and I stayed in the hospital with her for a month consistently, night and day, like they had to send me away and I wouldn't go away unless I knew somebody else was coming to be there with her because she was on life support. I never wanted anybody else to go through that. So I decided my kids wouldn't go through it. So I started focusing on my health. So initially, I didn't even have the awareness to take care of myself. My goal in taking care of myself was to take care of them so they wouldn't have that trauma. So learning to take care of myself became paying attention to my eating habits. Because with me having the bariatric surgery, you can't get but like a wing in or, a little bit of Jell-O, or like the amount that changed was crazy. The fact I had to set a timer for I got to drink at this time, I got to eat at this time, or I would feel weak and sick. So it built this awareness about what my body needs and when it needs it that I didn't have previously. In addition to that, I would start working out, I would stop, gain the weight back, start working out, stop, gain the weight back. So at this point, when I became aware of my eating habits, I started having this little skin. I'm like, oh, this is not cute. I'm not gonna do this. So I started working out and making sure that I had muscle to replace the fat. And in the course of that, I actually became a lot leaner and stronger in that. And so I made sure that the thing I put first was my workout routine, me eating. Because a lot of times I didn't eat. I would drink coffee all day. And then at 10, 11, 12, 1, 2 o'clock at the end of my work day, I'm starving and I'm eating whatever's still open at that time. So changing what I ate, how I took care of myself was a gradual, long-term process that I still do every day.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. One of the things while you were talking, it made me think about guilt. And sometimes we feel guilty. We feel guilty when we realize, when we have that awakening, right? When we have that awakening and we really truly know, and then we begin to long to know more about ourselves, to really lean in. What did the guilt feel like though? Because you being a natural nurturer, that guilt, talk to us a little bit about the guilt.
The guilt of not taking care of myself, or
Yeah,
the guilt of watching my aunt pass and knowing my mom had passed
we're
like
gonna
not
talk
too
about
soon before
we're
that.
gonna talk about the loss, right, of the loved ones,
Mhm.
but the guilt when you began to say, "I've got to do this for me." For example, your mom. What was that like? Did you have any guilt as it relates to certain things that they might have been used to you already always being available, accessible to them? And then you're saying, well, no, I actually do have to go work out. No, some of the things that we might have wanted to do, I can no longer do those because for health reasons, right now, I don't need to see. For me, example, if I know that I have a goal, it's certain things that we can't even buy. That those groceries don't even come in my house because I already right because looking
Oh,
and
ice cream? No. We got to get the miniatures.
that is a real thing because having those things, it then you want to it's too easy. So until you have trained yourself or allowed yourself enough time to where you're not as tempted. So what does that look like even as a mom? Let's just help the mothers because I know that when we think about loss of loved ones, that's a whole nother something. But let's talk about as it relates to being a mom, the feeling guilty.
So I felt guilty that I didn't give them the best foundation. Um, with my ex-husband, everything was food, 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 food. Even when he said we were going to eat healthy, he still was sneaking cakes and pies and all this other stuff. And I'm like, why am I eating broccoli and salmon? So, not teaching my kids good eating habits. I realized a lot of that had to do with the amount of money we initially had. And trying to split that amongst 5 people was you get what you can afford. We spent a lot of time at Save a Lot. In addition to that, I had to learn how to be physically active. The thing I did with my kids was bond through watching TV. Like we would get all the snacks from Dollar Tree possible, and we would veg out movie night popcorn. That's what we did every week for years. And so as I became able to financially afford some things,
Mhm.
and I realized, oh, I have what was it? Fit to fat to fit. I watched that. I started studying skinny people. What is it that skinny people do that make them skinny? And in me studying them, I learned the difference in the mindset. So, I always tell everybody, change your mindset, change your life. But you have these blind spots because it's the way you've been living for so long that you're not even aware that it's a blind spot. So research what you don't know to overcome that guilt, because then you will know, oh, you're the smartest you ever been till this day. But you can always get smarter. You can always learn that thing that can get you to your goal.
That's good. That's good, Barbara. That's good. I hear the look. I hear the learning coming out. I don't know if y'all know that. I don't know if y'all know that. Make sure y'all giving her some love in the comments. Make sure you are following Barbara Parker on all social media platforms. She is amazing. She is so carefree. She is bubbly. Like right now, she kind of got this. Because I talked to her offline. And she kind of let her hair down when she offline. Right. That's what I'm trying to get her. No, no, no. I want you to talk to your good girlfriend while we over here in this you first space, because I love what you said, though. That was really put really well done. I love that. I love that. I love that. And when we think about the guilt as it relates to being a mom and thinking about our children, it's also was one of the things that you did mention. And I know for myself personally, you mentioned your aunt, and then you mentioned another family member. When we think about the guilt and it affecting even our health, us putting ourselves first, when we may even be responsible for someone. I know I'm believing most people have had someone close to them. And if you've had to be a part of that or witness or get anywhere near close to that, it could be a lot to where whether you're not even on the phone. I know having loved ones that I'm not even in the same state, but you think just because you're in a different state, it don't affect you, right? Yeah, actually, it hurts even more so versus even being in the room and watching the things happen. So talk to someone about when you're in the midst of being there for a loved one and what that is really doing for you as it relates to neglect, because of you're going through this psychological and honestly physical change that's happening with a loved one. What does that look like for you when you think about putting you first and still being mindful of your mind and your body, let alone your spirit?
Honestly, when I was taking care of them and my mother and my aunt were both still alive, as well as my grandmother, I was not taking care of myself first. I was going to school, and it was not until a close friend of mine became the primary caregiver. Actually, he was always the primary caregiver. I just started to spend more time with him, and I realized the sacrifices that they made so I can reach my goals.
Mm.
Because yes, if there was a problem, I would drop everything, leave work. I didn't care. I was Johnny on the spot. I was fortunate enough to have jobs that I could do that. They understood, like, my mom is falling and I need to go to the ER with her. She's being stubborn and she won't go to the hospital. So I'm finna go be Johnny on the spot because my auntie then called me and said, hey, she being stubborn again and she needs to go. So me getting in my car and leaving work to get her there, to get her the help she needed, and then having to advocate for her and talk to the doctors and say, hey, just because she's being stubborn doesn't mean that she's not hearing your message. I need you to still do your job because she's going to obey because I'm here. So, and then getting her to do the things of setting up life insurance. I fussed at her. If you're not going to take care of yourself to make sure that you can be healthy and whole, then I need you to do things so that we're not scrambling, trying to figure it out while we have to grieve you. That's going to be too much. So like, I need you to put things in place. If you're going to be negligent, then I need you to have some foresight. And so I think I did feel a little guilty when there was all these different things she put in place. Mm-hmm. But it was because I was on her neck about it, because I didn't want the stuff. I wanted her to take care of herself. But my mother, being who she is and being stubborn, she decided to put those things in place and leave an inheritance for her grandkids, as well as myself. And that allowed me to help build and move things a lot further along, a lot faster for them and myself.
Which is a very tough conversation. I know personally having that conversation, and when people are not in that headspace, because I'm a believer, of course, our words having power. We know that there's life and death, if you're a believer of that too, in the power of not only what we say, because of course, not only what you think, but then you release it from your lips. It then begins to take place in the atmosphere. I'm a believer. That's my personal belief. And for some people, because who believe like that, even when certain things, we know that God is a miracle worker, right? We know that there are things that, my personal belief, that there are not things that he caused, but there are things that he actually allowed. Because some of the stuff that we go go through. I know that some of it has nothing to do with us. It's about us being strong enough to handle certain things so that we can be a witness and we can be a testimony for somebody else. But watching all of the things, like you said, witnessing it, certain things like that with different loved ones in my life. And like I said, my main family is in the state of Ohio. So what's up, fam? And me being in Georgia, exactly.
Our people.
Right. Hey, it's really hard. It really can be hard. It could be tough. And then to have that conversation, I've been one right with my husband, with my children. We have that. I need to know what are your wishes? What would you like? Of course, we already know at the end and the beginning of the day, it's when it happens, we doing what is best. But I would still like to know, and us as a people, I have to say that for us as a people, and it makes me want to cry. And it's because it's knowing what it looked like to be in that space and people not be okay to have those needed conversations. Because not only is it not putting yourself first, that is making it hard for your family. I have got to say that. I know that this is tender right in here, not only for what you're saying, Barbara. So I appreciate you being vulnerable, you sharing and talking just a little bit about that. But I know all too well in the things, and if I'm being totally transparent and vulnerable right now, that I am experiencing in real time. So take care of your business. If you are looking, you're listening, and you need to talk to someone to set some things in order so that your family don't have to do these things. Take care of your business. That's a part of putting yourself first. That is a part of putting yourself first, is taking care of your business. And that even means the hard stuff. That even means having that hard, uncomfortable conversation with yourself first. Yeah. We want to be here forever, right? We believe that no. I'm saying, hey, not only do I want to see 3 digits, but I need to be here when Jesus comes. Amen. Like, I mean, look, when he catches all up, I need to be down here, right? Right. I'm one of those people, but I do love that you are sharing this conversation because it is needed. What would you advise somebody though? Like, talk to somebody real quick as we prepare to even end this segment.
One, there's a new app that is out that records your last wishes, the things you want to tell your loved one. So that's something I just found out about on a trip. And honey, when she told me what the app was, I started to cry. I was like, oh, I started to run away. I was like, I can't have this conversation. This stuff's still too new for me. But find out what things you can do, what your wishes are for power of attorney. Because having a health power of attorney is very different than a legal power of attorney. So having somebody who's in that last minute making those decisions, somebody you trust to know they're going to do what you wish, and them having that ability legally to do that. Also understanding when you do a will that the things that aren't in there go to probate. So if you never have a will, everything could potentially end up in the hands of the state. So everything you worked hard for, that house, everything, if you do not have a provision in there for when you die, the transfer upon death clause is in there, and it specifies who that goes to and who it would go to if that person is no longer here, keeping that paperwork up to date, knowing all those different things to make sure that you're maintaining your wealth, because putting things through probate, that costs money and time. And so when you're trying to make these decisions, it holds up things way longer than you ever anticipated. So making sure that you have not only a will, but you're making sure assets have a transfer upon death as well. If you have a business, making sure you have things that will transfer into a trust so that it can go to your family. So that also bypasses probate, because these things are taxed. But if you put them where they automatically transfer, then you bypass that tax and your family still gets the benefit of it. So learning everything you can about things beyond insurance. A lot of times we do things because we are in a panic. We're holding fish fries. We're doing GoFundMes. We asking people for help, and everybody not in a position to help. Everybody don't want help, and then you still have to pay $6,000 to $10,000 to put your loved one in the ground, or to do cremation, which is a cheaper route. But if you want to do a memorial service, it's almost just as much as having an actual funeral, because you're still paying a ridiculous amount of money to store your family in the refrigerator, which I hate to say this, but death is a business. And you have to know that there's things that you can do, like getting the urn. I got our urns off of Amazon. They're beautiful. I hide them. They all in the cabinet. All my dead relatives live with me. So, when my kids get a little silly and they say, well, your mama asked you, I'll be like, yeah, she's right there. So we have a dark sense of humor. So, those kinds of things, just figure out where you can cut the cost. And some things are just easier if you know they're there and they're options.
I love it. And that is so good. That information, that advice that you gave. Make sure you are connected with, Barbara Parker on IG. She is known as Queen BL Parker, Queen BL Parker on IG. You will have all her information right in the information in the description below. Thank you so much, Barbara, for pausing for the cause to come and have this You First conversation, because y'all already know that we're going to have my girl back, because there is more that we need to discuss, because this young lady, I know you heard me say it at the top of our show, that she lost over 70 pounds. We need to get into the weight loss and some of the things that she's been doing. You heard her. She was honest about the good and the bad and all of the things as it relates to that. But then we're going to get even more into the non-negotiables. And what does that mean for you to put yourself first? Why don't you just wave at the people, Barbara? We need to get them out of here. Let's get them out of here. Bye, y'all. We'll see you next time.